In 1983, one man sat alone in a bunker and decided not to end the world. You have never heard his name. He died in a small apartment, in a small town, and the world he saved never even noticed he was gone. He is one of 8 people who saved or changed your life, and died as complete unknowns. We start with the man in the bunker. September 26, 1983. The Cold War is at its most dangerous. In a secret bunker outside Moscow, a Soviet officer named Stanislav Petrov is watching the early warning screens when the alarm screams, "The United States has launched a nuclear missile." Then another, 5 in total, streaking toward the Soviet Union. His single job is to report it up the chain, which would almost certainly trigger an all-out retaliatory strike. The end of the world on his desk in real time. But something felt wrong. Why would America start a war with only 5 missiles? Petrov made a decision that violated his orders. He called it in as a malfunction, a false alarm. He was right. Sunlight glinting off high clouds had fooled the satellites. He had just prevented global nuclear war with a gut feeling and the courage to disobey. His reward? He was quietly reprimanded for the incident. The story stayed secret for 15 years. And in 2017, Stanislav Petrov died in a small apartment in a small town. And the world only found out months later. The man who saved us all died a stranger. But he isn't the strangest story here. During World War II, Nazi Germany believed its Enigma code was unbreakable. It was wrong, because of one man. At Bletchley Park, a young mathematician named Alan Turing built the machine that cracked it. Historians estimate his work shortened the war by 2 to 4 years and saved millions of lives. He didn't stop there. In cracking Enigma, Turing laid the foundations of the modern computer. The device you are watching this on right now was, in a real sense, his idea. He should have been a national hero. Instead, in 1952, Britain prosecuted him for the crime of being gay. He was chemically castrated by court order. His security clearance was revoked. His war work was classified. So the public never even knew what he'd done. In 1954, Alan Turing was found dead of cyanide poisoning. He was 41. It took until 2013, nearly 60 years, for the Queen to grant him a royal pardon. The man who defeated the Nazis and invented the computer died disgraced and almost unknown. And sometimes the injustice is even crueler because the hero dies of the very thing they were trying to cure. Nikolai Vavilov wanted to end hunger forever. A Soviet botanist, he traveled to over 60 countries, gathering seeds, building the largest seed bank on Earth, a living library that could breed crops to survive any famine. But in Stalin's Soviet Union, science had an enemy, a fraud named Trofim Lysenko, whose crackpot theories the state preferred. Vavilov defended real genetics. For that, he was arrested in 1940 and sentenced to death, later commuted to prison. And here is the unbearable irony. Nikolai Vavilov, the man who devoted his life to feeding the world, died in a Soviet prison in 1943 of starvation. His seed bank survived him. During the 900-day siege of Leningrad, a group of his scientists barricaded themselves inside it, surrounded by edible seeds, and several of them starved to death rather than eat the collection they'd sworn to protect. Today, seed banks around the world descend from Vavilov's dream. He saved future harvests he would never taste. But the next mind was stolen before the world even knew it existed. In 1951, a poor tobacco farmer named Henrietta Lacks walked into Johns Hopkins Hospital with cervical cancer. Doctors took a sample of her tumor, without asking, without telling her. Within months, she was dead at 31 and buried in an unmarked grave. But her cells did not die. They kept dividing endlessly, the first human cells ever to survive and multiply in a lab. Scientists called them HeLa, and they became the most important tool in modern medicine. HeLa cells helped build the polio vaccine. They went up in the first space missions. They powered breakthroughs in cancer, in cloning, in gene mapping, and decades later in the COVID vaccines. Billions of them are alive right now in labs across the world. Henrietta Lacks saved untold millions of lives, but for more than 20 years, her own family had no idea her cells even existed. While companies profited from them, She died unknown, in an unmarked grave, and the world she healed didn't learn her name for half a century. Some of the forgotten weren't robbed by cruelty, but by time itself. Albert Einstein called her the most important woman in the history of mathematics. You have probably never heard her name. Emmy Noether proved a theorem so fundamental that modern physics cannot function without it. It links the symmetries of the universe to its deepest laws, the conservation of energy itself. Every physicist alive uses her work, and how did the world treat her? In Germany, she was refused a paid professorship for years because she was a woman. She lectured under a male colleague's name just to teach. Then, in 1933, the Nazis dismissed her for being Jewish, and she fled to America. 2 years later, in 1935, Emmy Noether died after surgery at 53. Still without the recognition her genius had earned 100 times over. The equations that describe reality carry her fingerprint. Her name is carried by almost no one. Our next genius had even less time, just 20 years. Evariste Galois was a teenager when he solved a problem that had defeated mathematicians for centuries, and in doing so, invented an entirely new branch of mathematics. It underpins modern algebra, cryptography, even quantum physics. But Galois was a hot-headed young revolutionary in 1830s France, and he got himself into a duel over, of all things, a woman. He was 20 years old. The night before the duel, convinced he would die, he stayed up frantically writing out his mathematical ideas, scrawling "I have no time" in the margins. At dawn, he was shot in the stomach and left in a field. He died the next day. For over a decade, his revolutionary papers sat ignored, dismissed as the ramblings of a troublemaker. Only years later did the world realize a 20-year-old had rewritten mathematics the night before he died. Not every forgotten genius was a scientist. One of the most famous unknowns of all time never sold a thing. Today, a single Vincent van Gogh painting can sell for over $100 million. In his own lifetime, he sold almost none. Van Gogh only became a painter at 27, and in a single decade, he produced over 2,000 works. Sunflowers, starry skies, and portraits that would reshape the course of art. He poured everything into it. The world gave him nothing back. Poor, mentally tormented, and dependent on his brother Theo for money, he was dismissed as a failure. In 1890, at 37, Vincent van Gogh died from a gunshot wound, believing his life's work had meant nothing. Within a few decades, he was one of the most beloved artists who ever lived. He never knew. He died certain that he had failed. The forgotten aren't only found in dusty history. Some of them are shockingly recent. Aaron Swartz was a prodigy. At 14, he helped create RSS, the technology that powers podcasts and news feeds. He helped build Creative Commons and the early architecture of Reddit. He believed with his whole heart that knowledge should be free. In 2010, he downloaded millions of academic articles from a database at MIT, papers he believed the public had a right to read. For that, the United States government came down on him with the full weight of the law, up to 35 years in prison and $1 million fine. Crushed by the prosecution, Aaron Swartz took his own life in 2013. He was 26 years old. The open internet you use every day, free information at your fingertips, is partly his legacy. He died fighting for it, hounded and afraid, before most of the world ever knew his name. 8 people, one world that owes them everything. A man who stopped a nuclear war, the mind that beat the Nazis and built the computer, the scientist who starved so the world could eat, the woman whose stolen cells still save lives today, the genius behind modern physics, a boy who rewrote mathematics the night before he died, a painter who changed art and never knew it, and a young man who fought to set knowledge free. Not one of them died famous. Some died in disgrace, some in prison, some in an unmarked grave, some simply alone. We like to believe the world rewards the people who make it better. It doesn't, not always, and not on time. History is not a fair judge. It is a forgetful one. But forgetting can be undone. That's the entire reason this channel exists, to dig these names back out of the dark and say them out loud. Stanislav Petrov, Alan Turing, Nikolai Vavilov, Henrietta Lacks, Emmy Noether, Evariste Galois, Vincent van Gogh, Aaron Swartz. Say their names, share their stories, and subscribe, because the Obscura archives are full of people the world was never supposed to forget.